Roll up your sleeves, put on an art smock or an old t-shirt, place something down to protect your surface. I'm going to be using this nice newspaper. Use whatever you've got at home. And let's begin with our final session of creating our painted collage. So get out the usual supplies, a container of water, a paintbrush. You're going to need a palette for your paint, of course, some paper towel to clean your brush, and paint. I'm going to be using this light purple, some yellow, and definitely a bit of brown to finish off the bottom two squares on our project. I'm going to quickly rearrange my art supplies so it's easier for me to paint, and I'm going to start off with a wash. Last rotation we discussed a wash and what it takes. That is one coat of nothing but water on your brush. So on your bottom left square, cover it up with one coat of just water, so that makes your chipboard or your paper more receptive to this purple paint, which is what I'm going to use first. Always give yourself an M&M or Skittles size blob and go ahead and give it a coat. You want a nice thick coat. So I'm actually going to take the liberty of adding about 2 more blobs. So expect to use about 2 or 3 blobs that are M&M size to completely cover your surface. You're going to want it nice and thick because we are going to be etching. Just like in the light blue swirls above, below this time we're going to do diagonal lines that crisscross, and we're going to use the reverse side of our brush. I'm going to crisscross these lines and make those etchings nice and deep into the paint. And then of course I'm going to clean off my paintbrush side to side on the bottom of the water container. And then I'm going to also clean off the reverse end of my paintbrush so I'm nice and ready to begin my lower right section of my artistic collage. Okay, let me move my stuff one more time so it's easier for me to paint. For this next section, we're going to start off with some yellow again, M&M size blob of paint, and I am going to give it a nice thick coat. And notice we didn't use a wash this time. The brush isn't even wet. I dried it off completely, which makes this dry brush technique. The brush should be completely dry or as dry as you can make it. And I want you to use that yellow to completely coat your work. Now the reason why we're going to do this is because we want a specific effect between the yellow and the brown that we're going to do next. So make sure you give it a nice coat of yellow, and because it's dry brush, the paint will dry a lot quicker. Now it's time to clean off your brush. Check out how the water turns into kind of a light yellow mixed with the light purple. Use the paper towel to dry off your bristles real well. And now give yourself a little blob of brown paint. I'm going to again use as much of a dry brush technique as I can, and I'm going to paint the brown on top of the yellow and kind of leave those brown brush strokes, because this is going to help our collage, our desert landscape, to look a little bit more sandy. Okay, so you've covered up your yellow acrylic paint with your brown acrylic paint. Now what I want you to do is clean off your brush one last time, back and forth along the bottom of your water container. Use the paper towel one last time to dry off your brush, and carefully put all of your art supplies aside because you're going to want to let this painting dry. So as it dries, you're also going to want to get out the first painting that we did together and a pair of scissors. Okay, now that everything's dry, let's go ahead and cut the 4 sections out. You should have something close to squares or rectangles, but each of these 4 sections is going to be important and valuable to use when we create our painted collage. So I'm cutting out my sections very, very carefully. I'm using craftsmanship with the way that I cut, because I want each of these sections ready and individually prepared, because there is going to be a specific order to our collage. Once the painting that you just did dries, then go ahead and cut out those sections as well. But be careful, because you want that painting to be completely dry. If it's not dry, don't bother cutting it out. We're not really going to need all but one part of this section. We're going to use the sky in just a second here. But you want to make sure that this is dry, okay, completely dry. And just take a second to appreciate your work. We've been working on this over the last several rotations, and I think this looks amazing, because now we're ready to compile our collage. Now get out a regular white sheet of paper, make sure it's portrait, and fold it in half up the center with a vertical crease. Okay? We're going to use this as the background for our collage. I want you to cut it in half, because we're only going to use half of it. The sturdier the paper, the better. This is cardstock that I'm using. Use whatever it is you have. Now get out some glue. You can use glue stick or the white glue. And I want you to get out your sky. That's the light blue section with swirls. Dot, dot, not a lot on the back, and spread it out, but only in the center because your sky might be smaller or thicker than your paper. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to carefully place it up at the top. I'm going to hold it down for 10 seconds so that the glue has the opportunity to make contact between the two sheets of paper and stick very, very well. Now I want you to get out the yellow sheet, and I want you to get out a black marker and draw a swirl at the top. If you only have a pencil, use a pencil. But I'm going to do a wavy line at the top, and I'm going to cut it out. Now remember, this is the yellow sheet of paper where we went from tinting the top to toning the bottom with brown. Cut out very carefully along the swirl that you just drew. And this piece that's left over, this little thin piece, that's a scrap that can go in the trash or recycle bin. I'm going to use a straight edge to draw a horizontal line about a finger's width, maybe 2 fingers width underneath my wavy line. And I'm going to cut along that straight line too. And this is going to be one section of our desert landscape. So after you cut that, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to put glue on the back and glue this onto the bottom of your sky. Save the other part of your yellow cutout for later because we are going to use it. Flip over your cutout, and I want you to place it right on top of your sky. It's okay if it doesn't match up perfectly as far as the width of it, but hold it on securely at least 10 seconds and let that stick together. Okay, for the final step for today's rotation, find a cap, some small circle that you can use for a sun. Trace around it with a pencil or a black marker and cut it out because this section goes on top of your collage. And now you can see that we're using different parts of our different paintings, different etchings, different patterns to start creating this desert landscape. So what's pretty cool is I've got this circle. I'm going to put glue on the back, of course, not too much. I don't want to goop it on. And I want to place it somewhere on the maybe upper right side, but slightly, I'm going to scooch it down slightly down and to the left because I want this sun to be completely on our landscape because we're going to trim off the sides that are a little extra later. All right, and you are done for today. We're going to continue our painted collage next time. Please don't forget to take a picture of your process and your progress and upload it to Schoology. Thank you so much. I will see you next time. Bye for now.